Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking something incredibly fascinating and honestly deeply misunderstood: Asperger syndrome. We're going to be breaking down some brilliant expert insights from Dr. Sheldon Horowitz over at the National Center for Learning Disabilities. He actually compartmentalizes the characteristics of Asperger's into these really easily understandable domains, and it'll completely change how you view neurodiversity. Okay, let's dive into this. So, Dr. Horowitz explicitly sets an agenda for us today to help compartmentalize everything. First, defining Asperger's. Second, social interaction challenges. Third, language and literal thinking. Fourth, unique quirks and sensory needs. And finally, intelligence and co-occurring conditions.
Section 1. Defining Asperger's, what it is and isn't.
Let's just clear up a huge misconception right off the bat, okay? While Asperger syndrome shares quite a few features with autism spectrum disorder, nonverbal learning disabilities, and even ADHD, it is explicitly not a learning disability. Really establishing that fact right now gives us the proper lens to look through as we start examining the specific behaviors.
Section 2. Social interaction challenges, navigating social cues.
When we look at social interaction, individuals with Asperger's face a massive hurdle with nonverbal communication. They have a notoriously hard time reading other people's gestures or facial expressions. But here's the thing, it's actually a two-way street. Sometimes their own physical gestures don't accurately communicate what they are internally feeling. Couple that disconnect with low or just poorly sustained eye contact, and man, navigating even a simple social gathering, it becomes an absolute maze.
Because they struggle so much to understand emotional cues, they might completely miscalculate the vibe of a room, just misreading the situation entirely. And this directly leads to inappropriate reactions. They might say something totally out of left field or repeat a phrase that just doesn't fit the context at all. It's a really painful disconnect between perception and reaction, and tragically, this puts them at a super high risk for social isolation and not having many friends.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Section 3. Language and literal thinking. Communication quirks.
Okay, so here's where things get incredibly paradoxical. Individuals with Asperger's are often extremely verbal. We're talking highly sophisticated, professor-like vocabularies. However, as we all know, a vast vocabulary does not automatically equal great communication. In practice, the conversational flow can be incredibly awkward. They tend to hyper-focus on their own niche interests, kind of neglecting the other person's input entirely. That natural reciprocal back-and-forth flow you'd expect in a chat, it's often just missing.
To really wrap your head around how they process language, just think about the common phrase, "get out of here." Individuals with Asperger's tend to be literal, like incredibly literal. So imagine you just told them a terrific story, and you exclaim, "get out of here," out of pure happy disbelief. They might completely miss that nuance. Instead, their literal interpretation might cause them to actually stand up, grab their coat, and walk right out the door. It makes everyday, casual banter highly confusing for everyone involved.
And it's not just the words they choose, right? It's how they physically deliver them. Even with that amazing, sophisticated vocabulary, they very often struggle with vocal modulation. This means they have difficulty regulating their tone of voice, finding the appropriate pitch, or properly controlling their volume for whatever specific setting they happen to be in.
Section 4. Unique quirks and sensory needs. Fascinations and aversions.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer complexity of Asperger's. First off, they can develop these incredibly intense hyperfixations. We're talking memorizing entire subway maps or becoming the absolute foremost expert on bridge ironwork. But then, contrast that deep focus with their sensory aversions. They are often deeply physically bothered by everyday noises, bright lights, or intense textures and tastes. Combine all of that with a very unique physicality, exhibiting awkward posture or honestly, just not knowing what to do with their hands in a social setting.
Now, this physical awkwardness extends into athletics in a totally surprising way. Many individuals with Asperger's actually do exceptionally well in individual sports. They can be fantastic at them. But team sports, wow, that's an area of intense difficulty. Think about it. Team sports require a rapid understanding of complex, interactive rules on the fly, alongside super high demands on balance, coordination, and muscle control. The fluid, chaotic unpredictability of a team environment is uniquely challenging for them.
So these sensory and physical quirks, they manifest in very real daily struggles. Simply moving from one activity to another, just handling those routine transitions can be highly disruptive and stressful. Furthermore, those same motor control issues show up right in the classroom or the office.
For instance, the fine motor control required for simple handwriting is a well-known and super frustrating area of difficulty.
Section 5. Intelligence and co-occurring conditions. The broader picture.
Okay, so zooming out, despite the complex social and physical challenges we've just outlined, individuals with Asperger's are almost always of at least average intelligence. In fact, they frequently demonstrate profound giftedness, or even potential savant qualities, which is exactly why they're often referred to as high-functioning autistics. However, we have to remember that high intelligence doesn't shield them from co-occurring conditions. Features of ADHD are super common here, and absolutely crucially, they face significant risks for anxiety and depression that really must be monitored carefully.
So, when we look at this entire comprehensive breakdown, the literal thinking, the brilliant hyperfixations, the social disconnects, and that profound, undeniable intelligence, we really have to ask ourselves, how can understanding these specific domains help us better support individuals with Asperger's? If we know they struggle with social reciprocity, but absolutely excel in deep, focused knowledge, how do we adjust our own communication to meet them halfway? It's an incredibly powerful question. For a deeper dive into this profile, I highly encourage you to visit the National Center for Learning Disabilities at ncld.org. Keep questioning and keep learning.